My name is Liz Niven and I'm convener of the Scottish Pen Writers in Exile Committee. Scottish Pen was founded after World War One. International Pen was founded after World War One, and then Scottish Pen in 1927. So it's been running for a long, long time, and campaigning to promote literature, foster cross-cultural exchange, and champion freedom of expression. And so twice a year, the Writers in Exile Committee produce a magazine. They edit a magazine called Pennings, as you know, and each edition we have a featured writer and a guest writer. And we're delighted our committee is all here, I think. We'll get Samina Chaudhry, Moira McPartlin, Gianni Mastrel, I've got to pronounce this properly, Mastrangioli Salazar. Yes. We're the four people on the committee and that work with the magazine. And so I'm going to hand over to Moira McPartlin, who's going to talk a little bit about this particular edition with the theme of diary. And Tawona Sutoli was our guest writer, but unfortunately can't manage along tonight. And again, Moira is going to tell us a little bit about his process and our process, really, of editing and compiling the magazine. Thank you, Moira.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. It's really lovely to see so many people here, and I'm really looking forward to this event. It should be great. This is the third, I think it's the third event that we've had now of readings after the Penning magazine has been issued, and certainly the diary issue, we got about 18 submissions from 11 contributors, so that's quite good. We would like more, so but that is actually quite good. And what happens is, if you don't already know, is we are sent at the deadline, the committee are sent all the submissions anonymously, but we do know which ones are from Pen members and which ones are from writers from overseas living in Scotland. So we do have that distinction. What normally happens before the pandemic is that we would meet at face-to-face, and we would have a great meeting discussing all of the pieces, and it would normally last about 2 or 3 hours, but it was always very good fun and very productive. During the pandemic, we've had to be a wee bit more efficient. So what we do now is that we have to read the submissions ourselves and then make a list of yes, no's and maybes from our own decisions with comments around that, send that to Liz, and then she compiles the sort of ones that need to be discussed. We then have to meet on Zoom to discuss that. I'd like to say that if you've submitted and you haven't been successful, don't be disheartened. It's quite often just because it doesn't meet the theme and or it doesn't meet the guidelines. So please keep submitting. Well, normally, you can submit up to 3 poems and 1 short piece. But sometimes if we have 3 poems or 2 poems and we can't decide which ones are our favourites, then we will publish 2. Normally we would only do 1, but quite often we publish 2. And I think there's a couple of readings tonight where the contributors have had both 2 poems published. The diary theme was really lovely to read, and it was lovely to have Tawona Sutoli as our guest writer. I am not going to talk about all of the pieces that were submitted, but what I am going to do is Tawona, unfortunately, as Liz said, can't be with us tonight, but I'm going to read his introduction to the Penning magazine, which is a beautiful piece of art in its own right and really, really sums up the theme, I think. I don't think I can do it justice, but I'll give it a go. It is the persistence of time that ushers the turn of seasons, the regeneration of the earth, and so too the germination of seeds and the ripening of age. As the assured river of time flows by, experiences and their associated thoughts and emotions transform into memory. A written account of what is seen, heard, and felt attempts to hold this memory. This collection of poetry and prose is an exploration of how the diary does not settle in one form. Intimacy and privacy is illustrated in fall. While shorthanded sailing renga is a rich blend of voices rather than a solitary effort. The basics of human interaction, family and food come together in How Much Pasta for Us Too and Pomegranates with Salt. Pieces like Washing Day Shetland and Hester invite us to consider, as our ancestors have done, that nature itself is full of voices and is a medium of storying memories. Unfolding in prose, any human touch takes us to another time, as if a reprieve from the one that we're in, but also an affirmation of the things that remain. The puzzlement of understanding our world has been sharpened by the current pandemic, and these writers offer us a chance to take our minds for a walk and let our imaginations exercise. And we need our imaginations more than ever as we stagger on unsettled foundations of the world we have gotten used to. Something urgent, troubling, almost uncontrollable is happening to us as a humanity, something epic. This volume is so timely and enriching as we grapple with this memory we are in the middle of making. Isn't that lovely? So I'm really excited that you're going to hear some of these pieces being read out tonight. So now I'm going to hand you over to Samina, and she is going to read you some pieces from our featured writer, Chirokuri Chirokori.
Hi everyone, lovely to see you all, and that was a lovely introduction, so beautifully read by Moira, and I felt the introduction was also very beautiful. I'm one of the writers, one of the editors of the Writers in Exile Committee, and I'll be reading one of the poems of a featured writer, poet and performer, Chirokuri Chirokori. So we're just going to give a brief introduction about him. He was born in Gutu, Zimbabwe in 1962. He is a graduate of the University of Zimbabwe and honorary fellow of the University of Iowa. He has published 4 collections of his poetry and has contributed poems and articles in numerous publications. He has written children's books and written lyrics for a number of musicians. He performs his poetry solo and also with musical accomplishments. So I chose one of his poems, You Can Hold My Hand, because I felt that it was not only quite atmospheric, but apart from being quite dark, I felt that it ends on a high note of hope. And I just felt that this is something that's really needed much in these uncertain times. And also felt that the poem is dedicated to all, he says that it's dedicated to all perished illegal immigrants, which I thought that it speaks volumes in its own self, but also feel that the term illegal can further marginalize people and the potential harm it can cause. So felt that the subject matter not only encompasses the struggles of being a migrant, but also felt that it's a really important subject matter, keeping in mind what's happening these days in our society as well as abroad. So I'm just going to read his poem, You Can Hold My Hand, and it's dedicated to all perished illegal migrants. You can hold my firm hand tightly as we climb this steep mountain. But if I so happen to slip and tumble, you are likely to go down as well, both of us crumbling down the slope. The mountain will hold our fate, deciding whether both of us, or just one, you or myself, is spared in reasonable shape to narrate our ambitious story. Sad and scary as I might be, no other option is available, but to climb this deadly slope, for beyond this mammoth hurdle, lush green pastures are beckoning. Thank you. I will pass on to now Liz.
Thank you very much, Samina. That was just beautifully read and introducing Chirokuri's work, and really is. Thank you very much. And Moira, that was lovely too. We're now delighted to hear from our readers, who are the writers who are in the current pennings. We're going to hear from Mandy, Haggith, Fidan, Meikle, Xinyi. There's a recording coming in between Fidan and then Ross Walker, then David Hunter and Sandra Ireland will read prose. And also to say that for each of these writers, there is a biography on the Penning website. If you would like to know more about the writers, they'll give a wee introduction to themselves just before the read. But if you would like to know a little bit more about them, there's a biography in the Pennings magazine. So I think that's us ready to go. Okay, so we're going to start with Mandy. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me. And thanks, everybody, for coming along to listen. I'm going to read two poems that are in this issue. I'm very fond of the process called Renga, which is a collective poetry writing method that originates in Japan. And a Renga consists of a large number, sometimes 20, little haiku or short poems. And given that often don't get the chance to write collectively with other people, but as a form, I really enjoy it. So I've been doing some solo rengas and I'll start with one called January. It's seasonally very appropriate. And it originated by me writing a haiku, either 3 lines or 2 lines, every day of the month of January. Rain on dark windows, tinsel scattering light, the bonfire's ashes. Wind-tossed trees and river roaring and cheering. Just as we decide this is the boat for us, 2 others appear. An otter fishing, watched by a cormorant. The river, another tide, more tears. Now the trees are bare, lichens claim their season. A disgusting day, huge puddles tug at our wheels. While the fire blazes, even old iron glitters. In the hurricane, trees frenzy, some will fall. The coffin is lowered. Yews have uprooted themselves. Horizontal trees, the earth accepting what it is given. After the hurricane, feebleness. Stomping on tasks, saying the simplest things with good humour. Come, poets, be hailed on in the woods. After silent years, the chainsaw starts up first time. Can we not just let fallen trees lie? Greeting the birds. Hello, cormorant. Sorry, heron. Tangles of bladderwrack under the fruit trees. The sea feeds me. The day is short, but the year is long. The sun rises between Sullivan and Culmore, this war-torn world. 2 golden-eyed ducks with their kneading-oiled squeak. A fierce east breeze, lighter than a word, stiletto deadly. icicles on crags like walrus moustaches. After the ballet, fairy lights in trees, the river dancing. This land-slipped slope has regrown. Nature heals all scars. At the cinema, I cry when people are kind to Paddington Bear. My sister cannot sleep, then her snoring keeps me awake. The North Sea is huge and inviting, blue sky further north. Back home to porridge, wet paths, warm stove. Can our many voices form a symphony rather than a cacophony? Walking alone, I'm joined by all life. White world, snow, snowing again. So that was January. And the second poem is called Shorthanded Sailing Wrangler. And I'm glad that Tuan thinks it contains many voices. In fact, there's just two of us on board a shorthanded boat. So it's actually just two voices taking turns. It's not as long as January. The engine goes off. Listen to the living water. Waves sing their own song. The boat adds her wash of sound colour. With the tide in, all the rocks are hidden. A big blue fishing boat steams out between the islands, kicking up a spray. The heathery Rua has a misty tinge of mauve. My purple sailing jacket still carries green stains of anti-fouling. If I were a bird, I would be a gannet. Cormorant crosses the loch, flying close to the water, showing how easy it is. A breeze in my ear on the windward side. Exposed bladderwracks bask in salty sea light for a while. What is a bee doing all the way out here? He passes the beacon to port and praises our little boat. Guano has painted the cliff below nest sites, rock art. Suddenly, here, the sea smells more like sea than it did before. Wind and tide are in charge. We just interpret the score. The offshore islands wear bronze, black, silver, yellow, green, white, and gold. How powerful the moon must be to make the ocean dance. We're doing 4 knots and you're humming at the helm. The sea never ceases muttering and murmuring. High tide at solstice, a wave crest at noon, then down again. Thank you very much. And I'll pass on to Fidan Meikle.
Thank you, Mandy, and that was beautiful. My name is Fidan Meikle, and today I'll be reading 2 poems from the diary issue. The first one is Pomegranates was sold, and the second one is How much pasta for us too. Pomegranates was sold. You're looking thin, you say. My bony shoulders are identical to yours. Things never change, I think. You're well? You nod, you think unseen, unheard. You hug me tight, I sense the scent that's etched into your skin, rose water's sweet and musky smell, and just like that, I am 15, resenting everything you are, eager for so much more, thin lines across my skinny arms, slamming my bedroom door. We're in the car driving away, the world humming behind. I'm clutching with both hands my bag, you're clutching at my hand. The house looks the very same, only a little dimmed, but time has made its biggest claim. We've both been missing him. You set the table for us two, you've cooked a real treat. How's work, you ask, out of the blue. Okay, I say, I'm single still. Red pomegranates in the vase, you cut one up for me. Red juices sprinkle on your face, I sold the crimson seeds. Just like your father liked, you say. I know, I think. Is it? I ask. I read the anguish on your face. It's slipping through your mask. I walk the rooms in which we raised both our dreams and fears. I walk the rooms and catch your gaze. You wish you'd gone with him. He had the keys, he had the clues all left unmatched behind, but you and I would rather choose be broken and detached and twined. We see the sights, we shop, we walk, he cook the stuff I like. We drink the teas and talk the talk, both always watching time. To you, I am your very end. To me, you are the start. I've moved away, I want away. You want it all rewound. I watch you put your jacket on. You're shorter now, I'm sure. What will you do when I'm gone? You pause after you lock the door. You look at me and take a deep breath. I understand it too. Behind this door, there's nothing left for either me or you. We're in the car driving away, the world humming behind. I'm clutching with both hands my bag. You're clutching at my hand. You hug me tight. Thank you, you say. For what, I think. I don't reply. Please eat and look after yourself. I will, I say. Goodbye. The clouds are beneath me now. Your scent is still with me. There's pomegranate in my bag. His favorite, I think. And the next one is how much pasta for us too. Theme-wise, very different from the pomegranates with salt. I listen to you and I wish for the wisdom of my old and lived and known self, the one who not only knows you're unworthy, but feels it too. The one that can smile through your punches, and breathe in and out, and let go. You hold my hand and I'm as far from her as I can be, blindfolded, reeling after your voice, tottering the rickety sand, tripping and falling and bruising and aching for more, so much that it's all good, it's all good. I wish she'd gag me, lift me up and gag me and leave the blindfold. She knows I'm blind without it too. She'd help me stand and take some air in and out. Where are you? Are you far? I want to know, but I can't. I'm gagged, I'm mute, I'm blind. I wish the gag and the blindfold were my only restraints. I wish I wanted them off, but I don't. I know she'd pity me and I'd consent to its weight. I wish I didn't. I wish I cared, but I don't. Where are you? Are you far? You are far, you've always been. You hold me tight, blood dribbling from the corner of my mouth. She doesn't sink into your heartbeat, but I do. It's okay, it's all good. Dinner soon and we'll eat. It's all good, it's all good. You get a beer and sit to watch some football. I'll make some tea no matter what, I always do. I stand over the pan with boiling water, my face bubbling in it. How much pasta do I put in for us two? I bet even she doesn't know. It's all good, it's all good, it's all good. Thank you. And now I'd like to pass on to Lisa, and she'll play a recording from another Scotch pen contributor. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm sorry I won't be able to make it. Here I'm recording this poem. Diary. The day I saw it wide open in your neat hands, how you drew on your fag, uncross your legs, stood up, drop it like a rag, walk away as if you never saw me, went through the pages about a padlock to my drawers, a door between the two rooms, a screen at the corner, a lid on the pail, the cow shed where you were re-educated, reformed, the black ink and whistle brush for your big character posters, diaries in the camphor trunks that turns you a quasi-counter-revolutionist, your mother's Guan Yin, when the bombs dropped beneath the yellow sun, your father pierced open by a Japanese soldier's bayonet on his way home. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to read this poem, and it was written a few years ago on a November visit to Shetland, a place I'd always wanted to visit, and I went for a walk one afternoon and it was so dark, the light was being sucked out of the sky really, and all these really dark dark colours, darkness everywhere, and somebody had put a washing out. And it was all this bright colours, and the washing was if you've ever been to Shetland, you'll know that the wind is fierce. It's a beast, really. And the washing was like wild animals straining at a leash to get into the sky and be free. It was so ludicrously optimistic for somebody to look at the light in the sky and say, oh, the perfect day for the washing. So it stuck with me. And actually, I found the photograph I took at the time just a couple of weeks ago, and it really made me laugh. But I thought it was a really beautiful sight, and a idea of optimism and brightness on a dark day. So I'll read it to you. My connection isn't great at the moment here in Italy, so I don't know. I hope I get to finish it. So, washing day, Shetland. November morning, the wind howled north. Steel grey sky bruised with dormant storms. A landscape painted in low tones. Damp green mosses, dulled purple kale. Lichen-thin soil grips solitary rocks. Drained sunlight drips into dark clouds. Shell-crunch sea pounds the ashen sand, howking out ever-sinking footholds, grasping at scree with slipping hands. A curious seal, silver-lit in the morning dirge, dives back below in a sudden flash, seeking the comforts of the deep. A puddled morning, yet splashed with bright. Snapping clotheslines play strained music. Surf-white shirts pulled to swoop and soar. Yellow skirt, a butterfly flapping frantic wings. Bright blue socks sing of hidden sky. A lip-red scarf kisses the dimness. Amidst the infinite dark, the ice-flecked groan, a song in colour, a promise of arriving light. Okay, that's me finished. Thank you. And now I'm
From Davy Hunter.
Yep, I think we just lost Ross there. Evening, everybody. I'm a student still at the University of Glasgow MLit in creative writing, and it's lovely to see a couple of old friends here tonight as well. Hester,
who's waiting,
which is Icelandic word for horse, was inspired by some time spent in Iceland 2 or 3 years back when we did this thing called traveling around the world, and it really picks up on not necessarily just the one season, but observations of the place in general, because it is always in a bit of a state of flux as a country. There's always something happening, whether it's the flow of a glacier, or it's an eruption or a threatened eruption. I think the people who live there know they live on borrowed time sometimes. Hester. In a cobalt room, north from Meikle Stader, all the clocks have stopped. Ice salt shards blow off the Greenland Sea. The slow dying breath of Vatnajökull and the lunar river flowing mark the foolishness of time. From the window, I see the Jökull flood, a pallid swill pouring past the foss, past the house, but no one is here. No one is here but the silence connected. Superfast fibres of horsehair, chestnut, blonde, black and grey, a pallet brought in longboats, now mixed with sulphurous yellow and the blues of the Blaber, picked up by ravens. My stout wee Hester, how your legs carry you as if 4 were 8, the bite of a rascal. Now, as I watch you lie down to fall beneath Eia Vatnajökull, you look like that island that lies to the west of Straymore and bears your name. I ask, who first saddled the Irish horse? Who rode the red dun fjord horse as their war mount? who found Vinland, and then a whisper, why, your people did. Thank you. And I'll pass on to Sandra.
Thank you, David. That was really lovely. Hi, everyone. It's really nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I'm a novelist mainly, but this is a short story I'm going to read to you tonight. I use a lot of folklore in my work. So this was inspired very loosely. I sort of played around with it a little bit, but it was inspired by a folk tale from Perth, which is actually true. But as I say, I've used a little artistic license. It's called Any Human Touch, and it's written in diary entries. February 17th, Anno Domini 1584. How speedily your world could change. There have been whispers of the plague this long while, but it's like hearing news of London town or Queen Bess or a wolf sighting in the wood. I know such things to be real, but so remote from life here in our village that I can't bring myself to care about it. And I am 16 and much more interested in the peddlers' trinkets and the boys in the market square. I'm sure it's the sort of sickness that prevails in other countries and big cities. What would it want with us here in rural Perthshire? Still, it's strange. The men of the village have taken to standing around in little knots and accosting every tinker or drover who passes through for news. Even my father, who is afraid of nothing, is scared. Today he came home with a tale about the next village of how a family of 10 had all been stricken with sickness. I'm not afraid. Instead, I continued to let my mind fly away, stuffed with dreams of wedding lace and sparkly jewellery and fine sweetmeats. I had lately met a man called Duncan. My parents know his family and approve of him, so they indulge my preoccupation. His father is a miller. You'll never be short of a square meal, my mother says. February 18th, Anno Domini 1584. My little sister disapproves of my love choice. I think she is afraid she will lose me. We're very close. Don't fret, I said to her. You shall visit me at the mill house and eat the finest bread. We laughed over that, and she made me practice my slicing technique with the big knife my mother takes to the coarse loaves we usually eat. Even with my thoughts elsewhere, I cannot escape the thread of fear that is tightening around the village. Suspicion is growing daily like a canker on an apple. Last night, a fight broke out in the alehouse. I heard this from Goody Fraser when I went for water. A stranger seeking a bed for the night was found to have symptoms of the sickness and was beaten and thrown out on the street. February 20th, Anno Domini 1584. My mother has just returned from a laying out. Old Goody Fraser has gone to her reward. She would have gone anyway, my mother says. She's been ailing for years. They are saying that it's only the old and feeble who come down with sickness, but I'm not convinced. February 23rd, Anno Domini 1584. 2 of our neighbours have the plague. Their cottages have been sealed off to prevent the spread. Keep your distance, my father warns. Don't touch anyone. Perhaps he's right. On the morrow, I will creep out and leave food parcels at the door. Even though father wants us to stay home, I went with Bella to the cunning woman to buy herbs in little pouches. If you breathe in the mixture, it will ward off the plague. But there are so many rumours and false tales flying about, it's impossible to know the truth. I've not seen Duncan for a couple of weeks. I'm lonely, and all my plans are in disarray. I pray that our suffering will be short and that the sickness will fade away. February 24th, Anno Domini 1584. One of the few carters allowed into the village and only tolerated because he brings food, which is considered essential, has delivered a note from the mill. I'm so excited, my hands are trembling, but my father insists on reading it to me, even though, unusually for a girl, I know my letters well enough to keep this diary. We sat around the fire in the kitchen, mother, Bella, father, and myself, as if we had some secret knowledge to share. My dear Mary, the mill is quarantined. We are all in good health, and my father wishes us to remain so. I will not be able to see you, my love, until this is over. It will be over soon. Have hope. Stay home. Stay safe. Your loving friend, Duncan. My father folded the paper. Something unfamiliar glistened at the corner of his eyes. It was a tear turned to ruby by the flames. I'd never seen it. He dashed away the evidence with the heel of his hand. Promise me, Mary, he said, if anything happens, you will go to Duncan's family and take your sister. I nodded, too scared to say yes, as my very agreement might make it come true. Nothing is going to happen, not to us. March 2nd, Anno Domini, 1584. My father has taken to his bed. He says he's weary. My mother is nursing him and she won't let us get into the sick room, however much we plead. He must stay isolated, she says, for the good of us all. March 6th, Anno Domini, 1584. My father's end was a pitiful affair. In deep shock, we pressed herbs to our noses and watched helplessly from the threshold as our hale and hearty father transformed into a stiff, lifeless wax doll, grey face on the pillow, a skeletal knee raised beneath the sheet. At the end, he was denied the comfort of a sympathetic smile or a tender hand. The men who came to take his body wore scarves around their faces and sent us from the house until it was fumigated. March 10th, Anno Domini, 1584. At first light, we trudged with our mother to the top of the knoll behind our cottage. She needed some air, she said, and from here you could see the view across the glen and the hills beyond and the big sky. It looked just the same as it always did, but we were so horribly changed. My mother took a great breath and flexed her fingers in the cool breeze. She looked down at her hands in some surprise. Isn't it warm, she said, for the time of year? It was not warm. I was shivering under my shawl. I looked at her and noticed her skin had a waxy glimmer similar to my father. That was then that I knew. March 16th, Anno Domini, 1584. Committing my thoughts to this journal has always been such a comfort to the soul, but it pains me to write these words. My mother has passed away. Today we did not even wait for the men in their scarves. Pack your things, I said to my sister. We have to quarantine. I wasn't even sure of the meaning of the word, but I would find Duncan and he would help us. We took with us all the possessions we could carry and some parcels of food, a loaf of bread, oatmeal, and some apples and peas my mother had stored in a jute sack. Bella was weeping, but I was dry-eyed. Weakness would not see us through this. I took my sister and pulled her through the village. It was a ghost town, not even a dog out on the street, and every second house sealed with a cross. My whole life had withered, but a great surge rose in me, determination, spirit, call it what you will. I vowed to Bella that we would survive. We still had each other, and we would beat this vile curse. The only thing that threatened to make me lose my composure was when I thought about the things that used to matter to me, such empty things. I longed for that time back. I would have spent more of it enjoying the warmth of hearth and home and family, and less time buying ribbons I didn't need and daydreaming about a future that was not to be. We reached the mill, but the great water wheel was silent and still. There was no one to bring their corn to be ground or to work in the fields or to gossip idly as the millstones turned. Duncan came to the door, but would not let us in. Stay a safe distance, he said, lest you have the sickness. I told him what had befallen us, and we were trying to outrun the disease. His face told me that he did not think such a thing was possible. Keep walking, he said, until you come to a stone shed beside the road. It belongs to the mill. You can stay there until... He paused. We all knew there could be no end to that sentence. Go there, he said, and I'll bring you food. I'll make sure you're safe. I longed to throw my arms around him, but nobody can stand to be touched in these strange times. March 17th, Anno Domini, 1584. Duncan has brought us clean water in a pail and some cheese and bannocks, leaving them on the tree stump some distance away. Bella is not as strong as me. She cries and frets and makes me promise I will never leave her. I repeat my father's words, if anything happens to me, go back to the mill, Duncan will look after you. April 23rd, Anno Domini, 1584. The days of isolation have turned into weeks. We are unrecognisable, as rough as witches, but with a steely resolve. We will survive. Bella says, I'm so proud of you, sister. I'm so proud of us. We have beaten this thing. Her words make me feel all warm inside. Today has been a good day, a hopeful day. Just now, Duncan appeared with food. I blew him a kiss across the distance between us. Perhaps one day soon he will tell us that the plague has gone, that the survivors are emerging from their homes and the mill will reopen. One day soon, perhaps life will get back to normal. Duncan smiled at me as if he too feels that. I have a gift for you, he says. I bought it at the market many moons ago before all this happened. He was holding something in his cupped hands. My heart leapt. At my elbow, Bella murmured, perhaps it's jewellery. And I thought, maybe it's a ring, a betrothal ring. Duncan edged closer. I could see he didn't want to leave his precious gift on the tree stump. He wanted to hand it to me in person. Right back at the start of this dark time, people had insisted you could catch the plague from things as well as people. Blankets and shawls and knives and cups and spoons. Jewellery. But that was a long time ago, and how did we know it was even true? There were so many rumours back then. Duncan held out the gift. It was a beautiful pendant, the emerald stone glinting in the sunlight, bright as a mill pond. We were now so close, I could see the rise and fall of his breath beneath his shirt. I fancied I could detect his heart beating just for me. I stretched out my hand. I could feel the heat of him. I hadn't been this close to another human, apart from my sister, for such a long time. The need to touch him was an irresistible force. Behind me, Bella said, "Take care, sister. Remember what they used to say. I don't think you should touch the jewellery." That was then, I replied. This is now. A whole new world. As my fingers grazed the pendant, I felt the brush of his skin against mine. I looked into his face. His skin held that peculiar moist pallor I'd come to dread, and in the corner of his eye was the single tear.
Well, Sandra, that was wonderful. My goodness, it leaves us thinking of what contemporary relevances were within that tale.
Thank you.
These were fantastic, folks. It was just great to hear you all reading the work that we've gone through and read over several times and discussed, and it just adds a complete other dimension to hear the cadences and the way that you pronounce the words. And you know, it's fascinating. I don't know about the rest of the committee, but you have a kind of a sound in your mind, and then you hear people reading, and it's fascinating if it matches that or if it's completely different, and it adds another layer to it. So the one thing for sure, it reinforces the choices that we made, that these were fantastic, really brilliant to hear them read, folks, and content was so varied. I think that's what's interesting about the theme. The theme conjures up so many potential outcomes. You know, it's amazing, like they're never the same. That the diary scene, it seems to have a structure to a diary, and yet, you know, all the pieces came in were completely different. So thank you so much to all of you for that. It was great. There's always a theme chosen. The tradition has been for the guest writer to choose the next theme, and Chawona Sitole, our Zimbabwean guest writer, he chose the title Gifting, the theme of gifting. And in Zimbabwe, I think it's N-H-O-R-W-A. He said Norwa. It means gifting in his language. And that's the theme for the next one. And I really hope that all the contributors, successful and otherwise, consider the theme and consider submitting again. And the theme of gifting is an interesting one because it's not gifts or gift, it's the process of gifting. I think it's interesting the sort of choice of word that he's used, gifting. So it'll be really interesting to see what comes out of that. So that next, then there's a March deadline, as there's plenty of time. They also invite submissions in English, Scots and Gaelic. There was very little came in this time in Scots and nothing in Gaelic. In translation from other languages too, because lots of people submit who have English as a second language, or are exiles and have come in from somewhere else. So please do pass the word around if anyone would like to submit in another language and then with an English translation. That would be fantastic. I think that's the main things that we want to mention just now, folks. Yep. I think that all we can say here, and there's lovely charts coming up at the bottom from everyone saying how much they've enjoyed the readings. You'll see all of those comments coming up at the bottom. It's absolutely brilliant. And hopefully we can hear our recording if Lisa can manage to put that out with the recording later on. We would also like to say thank you so much to Lisa. She has pulled everything together so brilliantly, and we want to congratulate her because she's going on maternity leave now. And we will be very worried that we get everything working for the next edition in such a skilled way as she has done. So can I just thank Mandy, Fidan, Ross, David, Xinyi eventually, and Sandra, and also all our committee, Jiang and Moira and Samina. Thank you so much for everybody contributing both before this evening and this evening. Thank you very much. Safe home. You won't have far to travel.